In this lesson, we're going to take another look at the NXT software and talk about some features that I haven't shown you before. When you start up your software, it probably looks like this. It's possible that you have this little robot educator section open. If you do, you can just close that by clicking on this X over here. We'll talk about Robot Educator a lot more in a later lesson. So I'm going to open up that Sleepy Good Night program that I wrote a little bit earlier. And I'm just going to download this to my robot, make sure everything's connected up, right? Great. And if you look at this, if you remember, we have a block that shows us some sleepy eyes, and then another one that says good, and finally another block that says night. Now, you may not have noticed this before, but all of these blocks have a little bit of an indentation at the bottom of it. And I'm hoping you've never noticed this before, and I didn't really want you to notice it. But if you inadvertently click right on that indentation, this big mess of stuff pops out. And that's something we're not going to cover in this course. At the end of the course, I'll give you some resources where you can learn about this stuff. But right now, what I do want to cover is if this scary thing pops out, what do you do? And the answer is you just kind of go to the top of that indentation again and click, and it goes away. So if one of these scary things pops out, just click and it goes away. Now, there are actually 5 buttons over here. We've talked about this one, the download button, a lot. We haven't talked about the other 4 much. 3 of them really aren't very useful. I'm going to give you an overview of these 3, but I don't think you're ever going to use them much. And this 4th one is very good. So let's start with this one that looks like the play button on a CD player or something. That's the download and run button. And that means download my program and then instantly start it running. And that's totally fine for this program where we're just drawing some pictures and saying some things. But if you have a program where you have some motor blocks in there, move blocks in there, then pushing this button will start your robot immediately. And even though it's still connected to your computer, and hopefully it won't drag your laptop off the desk, but really I prefer to avoid using it, and I just don't want to get used to using this button, so I never use this button. There's also this button. This is the stop button. And again, stop only works if your if your NXT is connected to your computer. And this just stops the program from running if there's a program running, just like you would with your gray rectangular button on the NXT. And again, I prefer to just use the button directly on the NXT, so I never use this one. This upper right button is the download and run selected button. And that basically means if you click and drag a few blocks like this, so I've clicked and circled around a couple of blocks, and then I push the download selected, that will run just those blocks instantly on my NXT. And again, I don't like these download and run buttons at all because they make me worry that my robot might drive off without me or while it's still connected to my computer. So I never use that button, truthfully. The one button on here that we haven't talked about before that I do use is this one right here. This is the NXT window. So let's click on that. And it sometimes takes a minute to load. And this, at first, will actually show me every single robot that I have ever connected to this computer. So you can see I have a few different robots that I've connected to the computer. And this bottom one is currently connected. Up here on my screen, it says its name is NXT, and my screen is moving again. If I want to change the robot's name, I can. I can just kind of back over that NXT. Let me try clicking again. And then I can rename my robot. So for example, I could call it CS for HS, and then hit that little enter button. And now, if you look at the screen, it says CS for HS. So if you want to, you can rename your robot and you can change the name of all of them. It's just a little fun thing you can do. Something a little bit more useful is you can see how fully charged your battery is. Right now it looks like my battery is mostly charged, but not fully charged. You can also click on this tab right here that's labeled Memory. And when you click on the Memory tab, it shows you how full your NXT is. Your NXT doesn't have a huge amount of memory, and I've downloaded a lot of programs to this NXT, so you can see my NXT is actually pretty full. And you can click on the word program here. And again, my machine seems to be slow, but this shows you every single program I've downloaded. And if I decide that I have no idea what Untitled 2 is, so I'm going to click on that. And then I can hit delete. Then Untitled 2, gone from my NXT. Laptop 23, again, who the heck knows what Laptop 23 was? It was an interesting program I wrote at some point. I'm going to delete it. And I'm also going to delete that one. You can actually also choose to delete some sounds. If you look, the sounds take up a lot of space. So maybe I don't want to say yellow anymore, I'll delete that, or sneeze, and I'll delete that. And if you really just want to clear out your NXT completely, you can just push the delete all button, and everything will go away. It'll clean it out. And this will delete all the files and clean up the NXT's memory. Are you sure you want to continue? Yeah, sure. And it takes a second, but there we go. Nice and clean. So now I've got lots of room on my NXT. If you click on this Show Systems Files button, it'll show you that there's some built-in things like the startup sound and whatnot that are still around on my NXT. I like to leave those there. Apparently, if you take them out, it'll when it needs it for a program, it'll download it again, but it may mean that your startup noise or something goes away. So I prefer to just not show the system files and don't check on that button at all. So let's just review what all those buttons do again. You're already very familiar with the download button. Now you know there's two other ways to download. You can download and then immediately run your whole program, or download just a set of blocks you select from your program. I recommend you never push the download and run button, nor the download and run selected blocks button, simply because if you never use them, then you're much less likely to end up in a situation where your robot runs away and pulls your laptop off the desk behind it. If you're running the program while your NXT is connected to your computer, then this button will stop your program. Again, I don't think you'll ever want to use it. Just use the gray rectangular button on the NXT itself. Finally, this button opens up what the Lego calls the NXT window, where you can free up space in your NXT's memory and also do things like check on your battery power and even rename your NXT. So something I haven't mentioned yet is the NXT Help, and it's really very good. If you click on a block, like this one, down at the bottom right, it tells you a little bit about that block. And if you click on More Help over here, it pulls up a browser with more information than you ever wanted to know about that block. Now, something else I want to show you. Suppose you have a really big program. So I'm going to copy those blocks and then paste them, and let's stick them on the end of the program, and then let me copy this whole thing. And I'll paste that again. There we go. So that's a pretty big program, and now it runs off the end of my screen. But if you click on this little thing, it looks a little bit like a magnifying glass down here in the bottom right. That's called the Map tab, and that lets you move around so that you can kind of choose. I'm just clicking and dragging so you can see the part of your program you want to look at. So I can click down there, and click over there, and see it. The other thing you can do is you can click on this little hand up at the top here, and that's called the pan tool, and that lets you kind of move the screen around. The thing with the pan tool that you have to remember is after you've clicked on the pan tool, you need to click back on that arrow to keep programming. There's also this thing that looks like a speech bubble. That's called the comment tool, and if you click on that, it lets you write some notes in your program. Like right here, I could write say good, and then I could put another note here that says say, oops, come here, click it there, that says say night. Because of course, if I take a look at my program without all the configuration panels, I can't really tell what these individual blocks do. Again, if you're in the comment mode, you need to remember to hit that arrow button to keep going. And once you hit the arrow button, you can kind of click on a comment and you can sort of drag it around a little bit. It takes a little bit of practice to get it dragging right. The other thing that you can do is if you're in this kind of arrow mode with the pointer tool and you want to write a quick comment, you can also just double click. So I click twice and then you can write, this is a comment, and I'll hit enter. Oops, maybe I won't hit enter, and I'll click somewhere else and I'm still in the arrow tool. So let's just review that again. If you click on a block, then some information about that block appears in the help area. If you don't see that information, you may have to click on the help tab. If you want to know a lot more about the block, then you can click on the more help link, and that'll open up a browser with lots of information. If you have a really big program, then you can click on the map tab to see an overview and move around to see different portions of the screen. The pan tool lets you move around on the screen too. And the comment tool is useful for writing notes in your program. Finally, you can just also double click on the screen to write a comment. And just remember, when you're done using the comment or the pan tool, don't forget to select the pointer tool again.